Okay, I am going to do the best I can to show ancestry from Don Howell, the Howell line, which has a direct line all the way back to the 400s. So it's kind of hard to do this because there's so much information. I'm going to have to stop every now and then and let the screen capture these names. Just so you can see, anybody wants a link to this so that they can actually look, just let me know. I'd be glad to give you a link. Anyway, this is what the ancestry looks like. I'm just following one major line right now. There are quite a few of them, and some of them I have not completed yet because this is really extensive. But I got on a roll and ran into the line of kings, which just freaking amazed me. So I'm just giving you a quick view, and I'm going to keep going. Right now we're in the 1300s, right about here. So you can see some of the names like William Mallet. A few of these are like dukes, queens, that sort of thing, a few kings. But it gets really interesting when you get back closer to where the Vikings are. Anyway, you can see some of the names here, and you can see how there's an unbroken line that I found and worked my way through. Each one of these, by the way, if you click on it, shows the entire profile of that individual, their pedigree, mother, father, wife, children. All of it links to the next row down with the kids, or the next row back with the parentage. So let's just keep rolling along here. William Mallet, that's a very important person. He has this huge castle called Warkworth Castle or something like that. Anyway, it's got a huge history in England. You can see as we're going along here that the names are getting more and more Norwegian, Denmark, Sweden. And so we're getting close to the kings in here, lots of kings. Hrolfsraf Rolati, that's the best I can do. Big queen, big queen. Gunnarsson, another big queen. Can you see how these lines flow here? These ones all are interconnected. I mean, that's the only way the chart shows is through connections. If you don't have the direct connections, it doesn't connect. This is ancestry.com. So now we're into the 9th century, and we come across Ragnar. That I found so interesting. This is his line going down, which includes people like, Ivar and Bjorn, that sort of thing. But this is Ragnar right here, Lodbrok, and his parents, Sigurd Radenversen, and his mother, Brunhild Budlasdatter. Datter means daughter. Son means son. So he's actually considered Sigurd's son, Ragnar Lodbrok, Sigurd's son. Lodbrok, by the way, means hairy breeches or dirty breeches, which I think is hysterical. Anyway, his wife is over here. Let's just quickly click on him so you can see some interesting things. Ragnar, and this is his titles. I mean, he was really a vicious Viking king. But we'll look at his profile. He's got 59 ancestry hints, which I just haven't even had time enough to go through and look at. I mean, that's how much this information has been researched. His profile. Okay. There's a life story in here that I copied from information that I've been researching. You know, it gives a little bit about his pedigree and where he was, what he did, that sort of thing. About his family, you know, his siblings, his marriage to Lagertha, and his death of his mother, birth of his first son, who was Bjorn, and death of his mother, again. I guess I don't know why I showed, because there's several different dates for her death, so I kept them all in here for backup. And there's Fridtjof and Ubi. And then there's his wife here, Aslog. She was the warrior princess, the Nordic queen. His daughter from her, and his son Ivar the Boneless. I mean, he has a huge family. Huge family. And some of these are from concubines and just, you know, the guy was just prolific. Anyway, here he married Thora Townheart, which was after his first two wives. Everybody thinks she's his second wife, but according to the dates of her birth and death, she couldn't be. So she had Agnar and I think it was, well, I don't remember his name, Dunwat, and one more down here. Anyway, let's go back up to the top. Sorry about the rolling here. And we're going to go to the facts about Ragnar, which are over here. There's his parentage. If I can get that over on the screen. I guess I'm going to have to turn this to do it. There's his father, his mother, Brunhild. There's Lagertha, her son and two daughters. Bjorn, by the way, was not her son. The History Channel movie is very interesting, but they took a lot of freedom in who was who and in what order they were born. Bjorn actually was the first son of Aslog. And then the other one of note that you might remember is Ivar the Boneless. He was the fourth son. And then there's Sigurd. And many of these are now kings in their generation. Most of them were much more famous than Ragnar, which I found kind of interesting. Halfdan and his brother, they were like huge kings over 3 different, you know, Norway, Sweden, you know, it's just crazy. Anyway, for Ragnar, I'm going to go back now and go a little further down the line. Ragnar is really interesting, but there's ever so much more. So excuse me for a moment while I get back to our ancestors page. Come on. Come on, slow poke. Okay, so we're back here, and that's where we stopped in the lineage with Ragnar. Look at all these kings prior to Ragnar. It's just incredible. They call them the line of kings. And they're all connected. There's no break in the lineage. And we're coming in here right now to the 6th century. Harald Valdarsson was a really important king. Has a huge history. Halfdan, he was also very important. He was the son of Harald and Hildur, and Ragnar named one of his sons after this man, who was like his grandfather, great-grandfather, excuse me. And there's, it just keeps going back and back into the Vandals family, which is quite well known too. I guess I could just click on one of these so you could see what it says. There's one of the original Halfdans right there, which goes back even further. King of Denmark in 503. Well, he was born in 503. He was probably king by the time he was about 20 to 30, depending on the death of his father, Fridtjof. So, and then Fridtjof is as far as I've been able to get back in this line so far. I mean, there's a lot of history that I haven't had a chance to follow yet, but it looks to me like Friedlof is probably where the last of this line is recorded. And he was born in 456, died in 524, and he was Friedlof III, King of Denmark. So if I do some searching, I might be able to find Friedlof II and Friedlof I, Fodason, and we might even get back to the 200s. I just find that amazing. You know, this is like 450 years after the birth and death of Christ. That's a huge history. So I will roll back, and as I'm going, I'm going to go ahead and close each of these links, because that's what I've shown here, is these links from each level. We're back to Ragnar's level here, and his family, the queens and the kings before him. Oh, let's look at one. Queen Ingoldsdatter, however that's pronounced. Okay, she had a son, Sigurd, the Ring King, was a grandfather, father of Ragnar's son. Ragnar, excuse me, Lodbrok. Let's back up here. So the queen has quite a bit of history. Come on, back up. This thing is a little slow today, I don't know why. And then we've got like Sigmund Volsungsson. This is the line with Ragnar's wife. Norway, I don't know, he had a twin apparently. I found quite a few twins in here. I wonder if that is significant or not. So let's go here to next level. These are Denmark kings and queens. Knud Hardnut Sigurdsson of Denmark. He was a king too. There was lots of kings before Ragnarok, and there's a lot of kings after. There's Sinut, King of Denmark. He's also well known. Gorm the Old. This guy has got like really a super history. He's a king too, and has a lot of issue. I don't know if you can see all these. His son Harald, that's the one I mentioned to you earlier, is Decrepon, King of Norway, Denmark. He's called Bluetooth. Lord knows, a lot of these guys have these cute little names, and his son Harthcotnut was the King of Denmark. And then here's Bjorn III. He's a direct descendant from Bjorn I. There's also Bjorn II, which is his father. But he's the son of the old king. And there's a Gorm Eriksson of Denmark. So there was actually just an amazing history going on here. And it's just bizarre to find all this information. I think I'll close a couple of these lines here. It makes it easier to go backwards. Here's another very important queen. Gunnar, or Gunna Rollostatter. Rollo. Now, Rollo in the history series is Ragnar's brother, but he really isn't Ragnar's brother because he wasn't even alive then. They just took a little leniency there in the history. But she's the princess of Monaco and of Normandy, and she's also considered a duchess. So she was married, a political marriage I believe it was, to the Prince of Monaco. And her son ended up being a king. Let's close this here. And all of these in here, Walter de Caon and William Mallet, I mentioned that one already, I think. Open up. Okay. He has all these Saxon family names. Chester, Lady of Durham. I mean, it's just totally interesting. His father was the Earl of Northumbria. I know you can't see that, so I'm going to turn this just a little bit. and Egfrida of Chester Lady of Durham. So there's his wife, Helisa Crispin, which is also, how do they pronounce that? I can't remember how they pronounce it. Surdor or something like that. And then Walter is another king. And then Robert, his son, was another king. And Gilbert was another king. So the list goes on. And we're just heading backwards now towards current era, I guess is what you'd call it. So I'm going to roll this over and close this one. The Chesneys and the Claverings. These are all people that are living in that one castle I was telling you about. Montby, Sir John Montby and Robert de Montby. The Claverings were really wealthy. They had like 4 castles, huge, all of them, 4 castles. There's one picture, one right there, another picture, another right there that I found that are still here today. And Montbys and the Arlingtons and the Mallets still going on, only they changed the spelling of the name. It's very interesting. The whole thing's very interesting, and I'm trying to get Dawn and Mary interested in looking at this because this is their pedigree. This is their history. These are people that if it weren't for them, they wouldn't be here. And it's a pretty amazing history considering. So now we're getting back down to where we've got into the Howells. Here's a David Howell right here. He's historical. From 1705. He has 16 ancestors that are all hints that I haven't gotten through to yet. And on, this is getting closer to the mother's side of the family, but we're still on the Howell side right now. There's Joshua Howell from the 1700s and John Howell. And this one right here, this John Howell actually has a DNA sample that was taken. He was born in 1807. I don't know why they took a DNA sample of him, but it's verified through our line. So, you know, I mean, that's, and there's a few of these. When you see these little stars like that, for some reason they had DNA testing of their bodies, that if they were unentombed or something, who knows how that works. Science, research, that sort of thing. So now we're getting to the more current stuff right here. We have Don over here, which you can't see very well, but this is his mother's side of the family, which is also really interesting too. And then we have the most current from like the 18th and 19th century, and then all the way up here to the 20th century, where you have his dad, who recently passed, William, and his grandma, who passed back in 2001, and his dad passed in the middle of the last century. So on his mother's side, go ahead and close this. You guys might get bored. I don't know if you're going to get bored of this or not, but on his mother's side, he's related to the Hatfields, and I mean he is related to the Hatfields we all hear about that had the famous wars going on between families back in Kentucky. Well, I'm not going to take the time to do that one right now, but I do have it all the way up until the late 1700s, so you can see the people that were involved in the Hatfields and whatever it is. I can't remember. The Hatfield Wars, and it's very interesting. The nearest one he has is, there's his mother, and there's his grandma, who was Minnie Hatfield. And then Edward Ruth Hatfield. Andrew's an interesting one. He was in 1841 in Indiana. He got a big family. I'll just do a couple of quick ones right here, just because I can. Sarah and Andrew. Let's do Andrew first. Okay, so there's Alexander, Mordecai, Elizabeth. I lied, I guess I will show them to you, and Millie. And then we're getting into the real guns right here. These are the people that were really big guns, like Vance, Ephraim Vance. And let's see, go down here. These are all the female side. William Young Jr. from Elizabeth Hatfield. Joseph, Ali, Mordecai, Ali, Joseph, and Joffrey, and Ephraim. These guys in here are the big guns as far as Hatfields goes, back in the days when they were warring, and that's in the 18th century, 1715 to 1790. And a lot of these guys in here are also from the Civil War. So some of their wives have information about the husband's death and about being on the Civil War dole, because they used to give them some compensation. Anyway, I'm just going to call this the end of this for now because it's pretty long. But how interesting is that? I love it. Thanks.